You are listening to Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness with your hosts, Angie Roberts and Kimberly Murphy. Please be advised that some of the topics of this podcast can be triggering and sensitive in nature.
According to WebMD, a recent study found that 75% of doctors believed that they communicated well with those in their care. But only 21% of the people treated by those doctors said that their talks went well.
Hey y'all, it's Angie here from Unified. Welcome back. Today we are discussing 10 ways to effectively communicate with your doctor. But first, Kimberly had her big 50th birthday, and at first
oh
she was,
God.
yes, but we have to talk about it because I think that you made a negative into a positive, and
Okay.
I'm so proud of you. But how was your birthday in general? How was your
Okay,
birthday?
well, I thought I was going to be really upset about it. And like a week before it came, you and I even talked about it. I was like, I can't believe how am I turning 50? I don't understand how this happened. I'm sure a lot of women in my situation can relate to that. And then I decided I was 50 before I was 50. So by the time I turned 50, I was like, you know what? I'm 50. I look good. I'm happy.
Y'all, she does not look 50 or
No.
50. So
No, I really don't. And so I just took a look at myself and the age didn't matter. And I actually had the best 50th birthday. It was amazing. I mean, I had so much love from everybody. I just loved it. It was great. I can't complain.
Great.
It was the best
I'm
birthday
so
I've ever had. Yeah.
I was so glad when she ended up just loving her birthday. So I wanted to give a little shout out to her too for changing her thinking.
You can do it, guys. You can turn it
Thinking.
around. Right, exactly.
Right. We know that people with mental and chronic illness tend to have really bad experiences at doctors' offices. I know I've had them. I'm sure Kimberly's had them. And we also understand, you men out there, that it's harder for you to be vulnerable with a complete stranger. I mean, it's hard for you guys to be vulnerable anyway. So we hope this podcast will help you with this.
I mean, yeah, think about the men who like never go to the doctor. And by the time that they do, they're so sick. And it's kind of a joke with couples. He never goes to the doctor, and then they have the man flu, you know. But really, it's I think it's because they do have a harder time being vulnerable with somebody they don't know. So
I would think so.
Yep.
Okay, guys, here we go with our top 10. Number 1, take notes. Every article, every podcast, every TED Talk I listened to, every doctor said, take notes. Take notes while you're at home, when you're thinking of questions that you want to ask. Like, we say, oh, I'm going to remember. We're not going to remember.
I never.
I never remember either. So I have written down questions, and it went so much smoother. Also, take notes during the appointment. If you need to bring a trusted individual with you to help with taking the notes, then you can do that, or, you know, just so that they are there with you while you're at the doctor.
I do that with my mom, and it helps her a lot because she has a hard time remembering, you know, what was said because she's so anxious at the doctors. Right. So I think that's a really good idea. And for me, like, I'll remember everything after I leave the office. Oh my gosh, I was supposed to say this. Oh my gosh, I was supposed to ask him about that.
Right. Questions are so important to our care, you know, is we need to be able to communicate with our health provider as much as we can about our illness.
Exactly. And this leads into number 2. Answer the doctor's pressing questions first and attach a narrative response at the end of these close-ended questions. So what does that mean? So the doctor will go through a checklist, usually on the computer, and they'll be like, do you have joint pain? Do you have chest pain? Do you have headaches? Are you coughing at night? You know, all these questions that are supposed to lead them to some sort of diagnosis. It's like they're putting puzzle pieces together. It's like a clue that it's a clue to them to solve it. Don't just say yes or no. Say something like, yeah, it hurts and I took Advil, which didn't help, or it hurts to the point that I can't walk up and down my stairs, or it hurts, too much to open a jar. These were things I said. It hurts to hold a laundry basket. I can't walk for more than a mile. These things are actually used by the doctor to measure improvement rather than just labs alone.
Yeah, I agree with this. Explaining exactly how you feel to the doctor is extremely important so that they can understand how, how you're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't guess, and there's no
the checklist alone doesn't say anything, like
exactly. Which leads me to number 3, ask questions. So I was listening to a few doctors on TED Talk. I know you guys are like, okay, I thought you were the
researcher.
Psychology Today girl. Now you're the TED Talk girl. I'm the both girl. Okay. I like them both. So, and besides taking notes, they said, ask questions. Dr. Kirster said one of the most important questions you can ask when being prescribed surgery or an antibiotic is this really necessary? Because he said he is a neurosurgeon, and he said that 30% of doctors will say no, which means 1 out of 3 doctors are prescribing things that you don't need.
Oh, that's scary.
Yes, surgeries. Yeah. He's talking about surgeries and like antibiotics. Mm-hmm. If you have a virus, an antibiotic is not going to help you. Please don't bully your doctor for an antibiotic. They say that's why they tend to give out the antibiotics or something like that, is because the patients bully them. But I really don't understand how you're the doctor and you're being bullied.
Also, on top of that fact, every time you take an antibiotic, your body becomes a little bit more resistant. So you can actually get to the point, if you take antibiotics regularly, you have to go to a higher one and then a higher one. And eventually, there's nothing left. I knew a woman who had a bladder disease, and she got to the point where antibiotics did nothing. Imagine the pain.
That is horrible.
Yeah,
that's scary.
So never take an antibiotic if you don't need it. I mean, seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Another doctor, Dr. Crozy, says, clearly communicate why you are so frustrated by your illness. We may feel okay the day we are at our appointment, so you need to communicate exactly what is going on, explain in detail what is happening, how it affects you, and what you have done to try and help it, and finally, what other doctors you have seen for the issues. So otherwise, explaining in detail, they're meaning like, is it burning? Is it stabbing? Is it throbbing? You remember, all that stuff. Is it all of that?
It means something different. Yeah.
With some of us with chronic illness, it's all of that at once. So they just want to know exactly when it started happening, the onset of it, and what you've done. If you've taken any medicine, go ahead and let them know that. Try to write everything down. It helps.
I think that would help with mental health appointment too, because especially if you write things down as they happen, because a lot of people disassociate as a coping mechanism, so they forget a lot of things.
Yes, I
do. I do too. So writing it down can help, and then you can bring it with you.
Right. I think it's especially helpful with mental health to write down when you take your PRNs and maybe why you're taking your PRN. That might help your therapist with knowing like kind of what's going on with your triggers.
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. And which leads me to number 4. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Focus on your concerns. If you get the sense that your concerns are being brushed over, interject. Say, excuse me, I have tried to answer all your questions, but I'm still not certain my concerns have been addressed. Can you please help me understand why I have been feeling tired, short of breath, whatever it is for however long? You can take charge of the conversation at that point.
Right. And you have to remember sometimes that your doctor works for you. and that don't let them leave the room until they've answered your questions, because once they leave, they just never seem to come back.
No, they don't. So you really have to focus on why you're there. Keep the smallest talk to a minimum and just make sure, if you're not understanding what's going on, let them know. They're there. They're there to educate you, not just diagnose you. And I think a lot of people forget that. I know I've forgotten that many times, that they're there to help me. Education is really important. So ask them if you don't understand. You have to ask them what they're doing with you. They may have an answer that you never thought of because they're the doctor. They have a lot of things they're focusing on.
Number 5, learn how to access your medical records online. And I know some people don't even know that they can do that, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But most providers have portals, they're called now, that you go on. It's like it's like a page on the internet, and you go on that. You would get that link from your provider, but you can also get your test results on there. You can make appointments. You can leave messages for your doctor. You can see your health plan, stuff like that.
All
online
the notes the
on the
doctor has made.
database.
Yeah.
And without having to call. But also don't forget, the nurses and the pharmacists also make great tools for information before you call your doctor. Sometimes you can call your pharmacist, but this is something my mom always did. If there was a side effect of a medication that she needed to know about, she never called the doctor. She always called the pharmacist, because it took like 2 minutes to find out, rather than like forever. When I had a reaction to penicillin, I promise you, my mom called the pharmacist before she called the doctor.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Because it wasn't like really bad. It's not like I couldn't breathe. I was just breaking out a little bit on my back. Let me
and that's what the
everybody
pharmacist
starts
does.
mom shaming my mom.
Right. No.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like I was in having a horrible reaction.
But you're right. A lot of people don't utilize their pharmacist, and they're excellent. I love my pharmacist. Like, he knows me so well now, because I'm always getting things. But they have a lot of information that they can share with you. And they ask you every time you pick your stuff up, do you have any questions for the pharmacist? And of course, everybody, no. They do want to talk to you if you have any questions. So
usually I usually don't, unless it's a new medication that I have never taken before. And then I will ask, like, what are some side effects that, could happen, and how could this interact with my other medication, and make sure that we haven't got something, because, I take so many meds that we got to make sure that nothing interrupts anything else.
Well, yeah, because interactions can happen, and even pharmacists can overlook it, but they tend not to anymore, because the computer system, yay for technology, will
spits it out,
throw up a flag, right? So,
so that's nice.
Number 6 is keep your appointment focused on the main issue. So we go to the doctor and we have all these things going on. At least I do, because we have different issues. Like, if it's physically, my lupus might cause, insomnia at times, joint pain. I have all these things going on that I want to talk about. If it's a mental health issue, I might be really tired because of a medication. I might be having mood issues, whatever. But walk in and tell the doctor, these are the things I want to talk about. This is the most pressing issue, because doctors have an average of like 5 to 15 minutes per patient. And this is due to financial pressures, because administrators and employers are pushing them to see more patients in less time. And this is because insurance companies pay them less for providing care. So meanwhile, we're paying higher insurance rates and deductibles to spend less time with our doctors. It's frustrating for them. It's frustrating for us. They're not trying to do that to you. So if you have more than one issue that needs a lot of attention, mention it to your doctor. You may need to schedule a second visit in order to get, everything taken care of. But just prioritize your needs. You have to decide what is the most pressing thing. You may have lupus and want to talk about joint pain, but if you've had chest pains for 3 weeks, that's more important. That could be like a heart issue. So, but it's also why you tell him in the beginning, him or her in the beginning, what all the issues are that you want to talk about, because the doctor might say, let's talk about this first. This is most important. So you want to do that. But definitely go in with the mindset that you're going to prioritize your time and use it. Don't talk about your, vacation. A lot of people want to talk to their doctors. You would not believe, I'd hear a woman in another room and she'd be talking about the recipes she would, serve for Thanksgiving. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. I'm like, he's going to be in there now forever. And I'm sitting here waiting, and I've already waited an hour, and he knows he's got like 15 minutes with this woman, and how much help could she possibly get if she's wasting it talking about other stuff? So walk in.
But she isn't letting him get out the door until she tells him about this pie. So
right. Exactly. Right.
Number 7, know your family history. Studies show that 80% of diagnoses can be made based on your history alone. Yet doctors these days spend less and less time listening. So, cookbook medicine is prevalent, with doctors resorting to checklists of yes and no questions rather than really listening to what's going on with you, says KevinMD.com. So knowing your family history is highly important for your doctors to treat you. Knowing as far back as you can go is important as well. Ask family members if you don't know, so that you can be prepared for your visit. This is one thing that you need to know before your first visit to your doctor, because they do ask you what your family history is. And you can make a list if you can't remember what your family members have had in the past, which is hard for me to remember. So I have to make a list.
This was actually part of how I got diagnosed. The family history, kind of pointed them in the right direction for lupus. So.
Right. Yeah. And it really can, it really matters. Mental illness also runs in families. So it's good for them to know if your parents have had issues or your siblings. It really shows, if you are at high risk for depression, if your parents have both been, diagnosed with depression and you see it throughout the family, you could be at high risk. So it's the same thing with anxiety. There's so much they're finding out with mental illness that is actually handed down genetically.
Right. Yeah, it's true. The tests that they have out now are really helpful in finding out.
They even have, I'm just going to say this real quick. They even have a gene test that they did on me, that they swabbed my cheek and they sent it off, and they could tell what the best tests or the best medications for my mental health was. And I'm just going to say, some doctors say it isn't true, but the medications I'm on now help me so much more than the medications that I was on before. And those medications were on the do not give her those meds because they don't work list.
So how did you get that test done? Because I've never had it offered. So
this place is called genesight.com, GENESIGHT.com. And most insurances will pay for this to get done. So
because I was just going to ask, because my doctor has never offered this to me. So how do you get it done? Where do you get it done?
Yeah, well, I got it done through my doctor, but I think that you can go to the genesight.com and get more information about how to actually get it done. They may even send you a kit.
Right. That's great.
I've heard of that happening before. So that you have to talk to them about your, what insurance plan you have and stuff. But other than that,
This should be something every doctor's doing. That's
I
amazing.
think it should be, because you can actually do it for your chances of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't had that one done, but I think that I should have that one done just because.
Some people should, especially women that have had breast cancer in their family. Like that.
Yeah, we've had breast cancer in our
or
family.
ovarian cancer, which is extremely deadly.
Right.
Yeah, that could. Oh wow, I don't understand why they're not doing this more often. That's amazing.
I don't know either.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so number 8 is kind of off track, but important. Repeat what is important to you. You're sitting in the doctor's office, right? And the doctor is searching for patterns in your story. What you say gives them clues. Like I said before, it's like putting together a puzzle. So repeat that your knee pain is there and describe, in what ways and how it hurts and, what you can't do. They want to know how that pain is responsible for the issues that you're describing. So if they're not paying attention to what you're saying, say it again. Say it in a different way. Tell them how, you can't do this, you can't do that, when it hurts, the stuff that you've tried to use to make it better, and that doesn't work. And I know we've said this before already, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
You need to go in there with purpose.
Yes, definitely. I was, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was a TED Talk that I was listening to. I have it written in my notes, and they were talking about explain the story. I cannot, even though I think I said even before, even though I can sit here right now, I can't always sit here, or,
Right.
Or I can't, even though I can walk through here, I walked in here okay today, I don't always, sometimes I can't get up and walk across the room.
Right.
This affects me because of this and this and this. Tell them how it affects your job. Tell them how it affects everything.
Like taking care of
the whole story.
Maybe you're a mom that's trying to take care of your child and you don't always have back pain, but when you pick up your child, it's excruciating. Or maybe you're somebody that can't lay in bed. You're fine when you're sitting or walking, but you can't lay down.
Right.
And it's causing you so much pain you're not sleeping. There are different things that can happen, and they need to know exactly those issues because it tells them more about what's wrong with you.
And number 9 for me is something that sometimes it's been hard for me to do. I'm not going to lie. Be respectful. Sorry. Be respectful and courteous to your doctors.
You almost couldn't say that.
I know. I almost couldn't say it. I almost felt like I was lying. No, not really. But speak politely. Show up for your appointments. Call if you can't make it. Be ready for your appointments with the questions, and don't forget your med list or your meds at home. I do that a lot. Oh my
every
God,
time.
so much every time.
Every
and then
time
I'm like,
for me.
I don't know what I'm on.
Yep. I'm like, you're the doctor. You're the doctor. Right. You should know what I'm taking.
And always try to just, like I said, speak politely. But there are times when you have to stand up for yourself, but you can also stand up for yourself and be polite at the same time.
Right.
Or what am I trying?
You can be tactful. You can do it with
tactful.
Tact. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because all being disrespectful or not being courteous to your doctors is just going to make them mad, and you're not going to get what you need. So
you might even get discharged. And if you don't show up for your appointments, you might get discharged.
Right.
My youngest didn't go to one appointment, and the doctor's office called us and said, if it happens again, we'll get dropped because there's so many clients that they could have waiting, and they can't take them all. And this is a diabetes doctor, and she's the only one in town. So you really do need to keep your appointments because they can drop you for non-compliance.
Yeah, Angie.
So yeah, and we had a hard time with that because sometimes it's hard to remember appointments when you have a mental illness. Me being the mom, I tend to forget sometimes, and then the kids are like, and my kids are grown now, but I'm still responsible for taking them. So, it can be an issue. That one is like scares me the most is when I can't show up for an appointment because I'm always worried I'm going to get dropped.
You have to make sure your doctor is hearing you, not just sitting and listening to you. Make sure they're hearing you, because sometimes they're so focused on what they're doing, that they need to hear you out. But you're it's very, very important if you have a family history of, let's say, of COPD, that if you start coughing, dry coughs, and having all kinds of issues, that you go to the doctor and let them know, people in my family have COPD and now I'm having these issues. And you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like when I go to my doctor, hi, Dr. Cohen. When I go to my doctor, and he's amazing, but he does have a tendency to come in and get in front of his computer, and there's like a checklist. And we go through the checklist every time. But I'll say things to him. Do you have joint pain? And if I say yes, I'll say how I have the joint pain. And sometimes I'll say something and I'll see him get tense and turn and look at me, because I said something that mattered rather than just saying yes or no. So take that time to communicate with your doctor. Or like I said, oh yeah, my grandmother had lupus. Boom.
Right.
All of a sudden they were like putting it together. So,
let's check this.
Exactly. You need to be a talker. The doctor cannot drag it out of you. You have to go in there you have to be a team with your doctor. Yes. It's a team effort. I've said this on a previous podcast where my doctor looked at me and said, I believe that something's going on with you. And this is after I'd seen 5 doctors and cried every time I left. This doctor finally looked at me and said, I know something's going on with you. I want to help you. But I want you to make a commitment to me, and I will make a commitment to you, and we will figure this out. It's going to take some time, but you need to bear with me and hang in there. We will figure this out together. And I had never heard a doctor say that. And I stuck with her, and she was the one who figured it out. And we had to go through different stages. And she said, just trust me. And we had to go through different stages. And I did everything she said. And I finally got my diagnosis after 5 years. That's great. Yeah. So
it's a long time, though.
It is. They say the average of diagnosis is 5 years. And it's because people don't communicate. The doctors don't always listen. I remember one doctor said to me, I was going into menopause and I was 30 years old.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And just for the record, I'm 50 and still not in menopause. So I want to send a note to that doctor. Still fertile. You were wrong. So yeah, I agree with you that that's really important. So number 10 is understand that it may take more than one visit to solve a problem, which I was just talking about. If you feel like much wasn't accomplished in your first visit, you may feel like it's time to find a new doctor. Don't do that. Give them a second chance. Many times you'll get more time with the doctor actively listening and less time collecting information. They have to learn about you in the first visit. You're not going to get what you need in the first visit. They're collecting information. They're learning who you are.
They're taking your blood work. They need to know your blood work. Exactly.
They're taking tests. They're gathering as much information as they can. So give them a second chance. It will also tell the doctor how serious the problem is if they haven't solved it, so that more can be done. Because you can talk about the frustrations you have. Like I said, I left in tears many times. But I finally trusted this one doctor. And then that doctor gave me a recommendation to Dr. Cohen, who has been amazing and with me since I was diagnosed with lupus. So it was a long haul and really hard, but it's completely worth it. You have to team up with them and you have to give them a chance. So it takes more than one visit.
Don't forget to ask if it's necessary, if they want to do some kind of procedure or give you an antibiotic. It's just so important to ask that. Is this really necessary? That doctor actually admitted, the one I was talking about before, the surgeon, that when he had talked to the lady that he was actually talking about, he just really wanted to operate on her.
Wow.
And he laughed and he said, it's just what I do. I operate.
Yeah, and I
You know,
mean,
but then he said, when she asked me that, I realized, no, it's really not. It's
mhm.
kind of a risky surgery and I shouldn't perform it.
And you
And
don't have to
so,
ask with an attitude either. Just say, hey,
right, is it
do I really
necessary?
have to have this?
Yeah.
This actually happened to me because I went to the GYN. I was
Mm.
having pains, and she said, well, we could do a complete hysterectomy.
Oh, my.
And I'm like, I have lupus, there's risk, and I said, do I really need to do this? And she said, no, you don't really need to. I know so
Right.
many women that have had hysterectomies that probably didn't need them. And that's a major surgery
That is a major surgery.
just because
And
of, you know, small issues that my issue resolved itself. So
oh,
thank
that's
God I didn't
good.
do that. you know?
Right. That would have
Yeah.
been
Would have been
a
horrible.
whole horrible. Yeah. A
Because it
whole,
kicks you into menopause right away and all this
right.
stuff. Yeah. But and think about mental health. How it takes a long time to build a relationship with a psychiatrist, with a
It does.
therapist. If you don't feel like your therapist connects with you, it's absolutely perfectly fine to ask for a new one. But you want to give them
Yes.
some time. Give them some time and see. You can't figure that out in one visit.
I have a little story about that.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to use, I can't talk a whole lot about it, but
Right.
um I had a therapist. Not a therapist. I had a not a psychiatrist. She was under a psychiatrist. She was a
Like a PA.
yeah, she's a PA,
Hmm.
but she was working under a psychiatrist. So
Hmm.
um that's who I saw as my psych. And she did a lot of things wrong. She messed up a lot.
Hmm.
But that first time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give her grace. I wasn't, because she was a she was a great person, and it's so hard to like change people. I actually probably would have been more. I would have been more healthier mentally had I followed my first gut, and the second time she messed up, went ahead and said, I need somebody else.
Absolutely. If they're making mistakes, that
You
is a
know,
big red flag. Yeah.
right. And so it's actually turned into kind of a big deal now. So I can't
Right.
like really
Okay.
talk a whole lot about it, but I
Hmm.
can say use your gut feeling, go with your gut. If you feel like something isn't right or you just see it's not right, make sure and report it too. Because if it's not right with you, it's probably going on with other people too. And I know that's not about
Exactly.
this podcast, but
Well,
not
it kind
what
of
it's
is.
about, but
It kind of is though, because like I saw that doctor, I was in
right,
so much pain I could barely move because I had had lupus at that point for 3 years with no diagnosis, and he's telling me I'm in, menopause and I'm 30 years old.
right.
So in that case, yeah. I mean, and I went back to him another time and he was again just horrible. So if you run into that situation, you should definitely change doctors. I've had
Yes.
I've had doctors do things that, didn't seem right to me at all. So I can completely understand what you're saying. And if you have a gut feeling after you've given them more than one appointment, you got to give them a
Right.
chance. But if you have a gut feeling, absolutely fire your doctor, fire your psychologist, fire your,
PA,
psychiatrist, your
your
therapist,
PM,
whatever, your
whatever.
PA, right? Fire
Your
them and find
therapist.
one. You
And
have
if
to
you
trust
don't,
them.
yes, and if you're not comfortable with a therapist, do not feel like you have to stay with that therapist. You can always change, and they totally understand this.
They do.
They actually, tell you if you're not comfortable,
It's
don't feel bad
really
to move
important.
on.
Yeah, it's really
Right.
important to have a therapist that you connect with. So, with all that in mind, all the teamwork and all that stuff, what is the mantra for this week, Angie?
Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success.
And I feel like that's so fitting right now with
It
everything we
really is.
said. Yeah, it's teamwork.
Yeah. It does take teamwork to get healthy.
So anyway, so remember that we are stronger together. We're so thankful for your support. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys. Have a great day. Mask up. Peace out.
Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness can be found at anchor.fm/unified. There you can find all social media links as well as other ways to listen.